Greetings everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This time it is about the legendary writer Amitav Ghosh book, The Nutmeg'S Curse, that I'm about to discuss. The Nutmeg's Curse, Parables for a Planet in Crisis, is a new book published by Ghosh recently a month back. This presentation is about the very first chapter, and I have intended to present the other chapters too successively. So, being an Indian writer and the winner of the 54th Jnanpith Award, Ghosh deals with themes of political struggles, histories, diaspora, memories of homeland, and transnationalism. His vision of oneness, presenting a utopian world in most of his works, makes him a unique writer. In his writings, he never fails to mention the tie that exists between the humans and the natural world. His concern over climate change and crisis marks him as a writer of social cause. The Nutmeg's Curse, Parables for a Planet in Crisis. So this book was published at 14th October 2021. This is a non-fictional work divided into 19 chapters. It connects the reasons for ecological disasters of the modern world. It presents the Banda Islands of the 17th century. It highlights the Dutch exploitation in the archipelago, connecting the colonial projects the reason to the current climatic crisis. Ghosh believes that colonialism laid the very seeds for climatic crisis. On the whole, the book is all about climate conversations. So, the nutmeg versus the climate change. So, here in this book, we could see that Ghosh brings up a powerful connection, right? The connection between nutmegs in the Banda archipelago, the Western colonialism labeled by the Dutch exploitation, and the climate change or a planet in crisis. So he powerfully brings in the connection between these three facts and presents the problems. So, chapter 1, the lamp falls. So, in this presentation, we are going to deal only with chapter 1, that is titled as The Lamp Falls. So, the Banda Archipelago is a tiny cluster of islands, and it is situated in the far southeastern end of the Indian Ocean. So, this particular settlement is located at the northern end of Lonthar, referred as Great Banda, and it is a minute archipelago. It looks like sprinkled dots on maps, so you could understand how tiny these islands are. So, Gunung Api, an active volcano, or in other words, you could call it as the fire mountain. So, here in this very first chapter, Ghosh brings out a powerful presentation of this particular volcano. So it towers over the Bandas, and these are beautiful conical mountains surrounded by the waters of the island. So they are at a height of 1,000 meters. The name of this region is Maluku, meaning mountain. So these mountains erupt often, and they bring destruction and chaos to these islands, and they bring up alchemical mixtures of materials which actually interact with the winds and weather of the region in such a way as to create forests that teem with wonders and rarities. So, Gunung Api is indeed a gift to botanical species. So, nutmeg and the maize. So, nutmegs actually they reached Africa and Eurasia across the Indian Ocean. As Ghosh says, kingdoms rose and fell, but for more than a millennium, the voyage of the nutmeg remained remarkably consistent, growing steadily in both volume and value. So here you could understand that Nutmeg's production was quite consistent and it was growing steadily both in volume and value. So it became a very valuable spice in Europe, especially it was a symbol of luxury in Elizabethan England. So nutmegs were quite valuable in such a way that a handful could buy a house or a ship. Imagine. So it was an envy inducing symbols of luxury and wealth. So now the European spice trade. So the goal of the European navigators was to find the islands that were home to the nutmeg. So now begins the spice race by the Dutch East India Company. Governor General Jan Coyen, he was resisted by the Bandanese and ambushed on the shores of Bandanera. So Coyen couldn't stand up the resistance and he got away with his life. This incident actually shaped his view of Dutch mission in the Banda Islands. So he was not ready to leave the plan of plundering and exploiting the Banda Islands. So the island of Lonta became the target of the Dutch East India Company. So the trading monopoly of the British versus the native commercial traditions of the Indian Ocean. So you know that the trading monopoly of the British is quite different from the native commercial traditions of the Indian Ocean, especially that of the traditional Bandanese society. So now Ghosh offers an effective insight into the life of the Bandanese. So they are actually skilled traders and they were linked to, I quote Ghosh, merchant communities in the Indian Ocean. So these people of the Bandanese islands had an aversion to European goods, unlike Asians. So these Bandanese are quite few in number, maybe altogether around 15,000, says Ghosh. So there were no rulers actually. So the Dutch couldn't threaten and coerce the ruler to obey their demands. And they, as Ghosh says, they have neither king nor lord. So it was actually an oligarchic government over there without any king or lord. So the Bandanese, they actually depended on the advice of their elders, who were called as Orang Kaya. They were men of wealth. And these elders had political authority over the Bandanese community. The Bandanese, I quote Ghosh, have a deep-seated state for centralized unitary rule. Right? So the Bandanese are too few in number and they signed so many treaties only with great reluctance. They didn't want to sign treaties with the Dutch leaders. And even when they signed, it was without knowing anything what they are signing, because the documents were in Dutch particularly. They didn't understand a bit of it. And it was with great reluctance they signed these treaties. So they resisted the Dutch with weapons and arms. And something that has to be noted here is that this smaller community resisted and fought the world's most powerful navy. So now the arrival of Martin Sonck, the Dutch official, during the year 1621. So Sonck actually, he occupied the settlement's most venerable mosque. So Sonck actually rejected the pleas of elders and occupied the beautiful institution. So the mosque was very beautiful. The elders of that particular Bandanese community didn't want the Dutch to occupy that, but Sonck rejected it abruptly. So he and his men, they seized the best houses of the islands and they terrified the inhabitants. So they have come with orders to destroy the village and expel its inhabitants, says Ghosh. So the Dutch under song clearly threatens the elders for their full cooperation in the destruction of their own settlement. So the Dutch officials wanted the elders to give their full cooperation in destructing their own settlement. So now the lamp falls. So this is the title of the chapter, isn't it? So on one particular night of April 21, 1621, an instinct comes within Song. So there was complete silence in the island, and he could listen a sudden fall of the lamp. So Song takes it to be a signal of a sudden attack on himself and his men by the Bandanese people. So he gets panicked. He orders a shooting at random, says Ghosh. So it was the darkest of nights, nothing was visible, and yet imagining a ghostly army with no sign of attack, Song orders his men to shoot at random. So, what is the motive behind the Dutch interruption? So, as Ghosh quotes, once the Bandanese are gone, settlers and slaves can be brought in to create a new economy in the archipelago. So here we understand that Ghosh is telling that a new economy displacing the traditional native ones is about to come or creep into the Bandanese island. So once these Bandanese are gone, they can be made as slaves, and a new economy in the archipelago will come out. So the story of the Bandanese, no longer distinct from present predicament, claims Ghosh. So the Banda Islands is indeed a template for the present, says Ghosh. So he also stresses that it is time to put aside the myth making of modernity. So the disruption in the settlements heads towards climatic change. So chapter 2, Burn Everywhere Their Dwellings, is to be continued in upcoming sessions. So stay tuned. So stay tuned for the upcoming chapters and subscribe and watch. Thank you.